Hey guys, this is Alex Taldrin, and I'm going to be giving you a first look at Xsyon, a MMORPG by Notorious Games. Notorious Games is a very, very small independent developer. Um, I think the lead man is also the one who is responsible for Roma Victor, although I don't know much about that MMO, and I don't have a whole lot of background on him in particular. But essentially, it's a sandbox MMO and a player-driven MMO. All of the gameplay is based around what the players input into the world. Everything from buildings to changing the landscape to warfare between players. So the game world itself, there are no NPC cities, no humanoid NPCs. There are animals, and then they also plan to implement mutants at a later date because the premise for the game is that it's post-apocalyptic. So the apocalypse has happened, and mankind is now on its own without any technology. You're kind of like thrown back into the Stone Age, so to speak. So there are no guns. There are no. There's just nothing. You go back to basics like bone crafting, leather working. So it's a pretty interesting concept. I mean, you could pick apart the premise pretty easily and be like, well, why couldn't someone just find a gun lying around? But essentially, that's the world you're put into. And as you can see visually, the game is pretty good for an indie developer. I mean, you're looking at a small team crafting this entire world. It's not the greatest visually, I can say that for sure, and it is missing a lot of different options and features that other games, more polished games, definitely have. Things like HDR and advanced textures and all that type of stuff that you're used to with your next gen games. But regardless, I mean, I would definitely put this pretty much on par with games like Fallen Earth, something like that in terms of visuals. Just so you can get a brief idea of what we're looking at here, the map in the world is based around the Lake Tahoe River Basin. So the developers took a geographical map and downsized it to about a fourth of the scale, and that's what the world's created. So what I'm looking at right now is technically Lake Tahoe, which is right on the border of California and Nevada. Pretty interesting concept. And I mean, it gives you that real world immersion that you might appreciate when you're looking at a post-apocalyptic game. As you can see down there, there's actually a tree lying on the ground. The tree was not just designed there; someone actually cut that down and then just left it there. Because you can cut down trees, you can then chop them up into different logs and then use them for crafting. What you're seeing right here, this is actually someone who was terraforming, which means they were just shaping the land. They were using a shovel and moving dirt, basically. So they basically dug a hole around this and then piled the dirt on top in an effort to make a tower. And so I think I can go up here. So we'll go ahead and go up here. They put a bunch of campfires up here, I guess, just to light the way. But essentially, they put this tower up here so people could come up and look at it. I do want to mention that the game is in beta right now, so a lot of what you're seeing is just a matter of people, testing things out. You also just saw my jumping skill increase, which is pretty interesting. There are so many skills, and everything is skill based, so there are no classes in this game. Everything's skill based, and as you do the skills, like something like Darkfall and even Earthrise, as you do those things, those activities, your skill will go up. You can see things like basketry, toolcraft, weaponcraft, terraforming, jumping, hiding, fishing, all these different combat professions that you can get into, which is pretty interesting. Another thing that's interesting is that the ground terrain right now is snow. The game has seasons. It has all 4 seasons, and they rotate based on a pretty detailed time scale. So right now it's January. There's snow on the ground. It snows every once in a while, so there are weather effects. And the more it snows, the less of this terrain you see, which is really interesting. Right now it's pretty spotty. It hasn't snowed in a while, but when it snows again, it'll turn completely white, which is really cool. So snow accumulates on the ground. Details like that you don't see in other MMOs. Another interesting thing is that there is a day-night cycle, and there is even a moon cycle where it goes from full moon to half moon to lunar eclipse, which is pretty incredible. And it's I think it's also supposed to be in conjunction with the seasons and with the way the time operates. There's aging in the game. There's height and weight in the game. There are these bars down here which might remind you of something like The Sims. So you have energy, hunger, thirst. Right now my guy is pretty thirsty. He's also kind of hungry. And so, essentially these aren't just aesthetic things that they added to the game. Like, oh, you're hungry, great, no big deal. They actually affect your stats, which you can see right here. The hungrier I am and the thirstier I am, and for the longer I am both, my stats will slowly decrease. Also, if I eat a lot and fill my bar up completely and always keep it filled up, I'll actually gain weight, and that will have a visual repercussion for my character model. Right now I'm pretty thin, but you can actually get fat in this game, which is pretty interesting. And then the fatter you are, the more energy you burn when you try to run, and also the slower you run. So I mean, everything you do and the way you play the game affects everything else you do, which is really interesting. Right now, I'm coming into more of a tribal area. You can see the totem they laid down. This is the item you lay down when you want to mark territory, and then you can build within that territory. So this is the tribe that I'm currently in, and as you can see, they've done a lot of terraforming. They're practicing a lot of architecture, building a bunch of different items. You can see all these containers on the ground. That's where you can store items that you would use. This transparent tent that you can see, this is a project that's been started. So you can open the project and see its progress and see what they need to complete it. So it looks like this needs 4 cloth tarps, and then you can actually build this lumberjack's tent. You come over here and you can see these mountains up to the top. Pretty much you can go anywhere. There are borders on the entire map, but they're kind of built into the game story, which is there is an area around the Lake Tahoe that has been irradiated. And so the farther out you go towards the border, you'll notice this green, yellowish smog that it kind of indicates that that's the irradiated area. And if you go beyond that point, your character will slowly die and then eventually die. The developers have mentioned that as the game gets more popular and grows, they plan on opening up more territory around that, but that's just kind of like a wait-and-see type of deal. I mean, as far as the quality of the game is concerned, it's pretty darn good. I mean, it really is, considering it's an indie MMO. And there are a lot of features that still haven't been incorporated, but they are on the feature list. Things like PvP warfare, being able to actually wage war on other tribes. A lot of the crafting and a lot of the building has been implemented, although there still are some professions that are missing. Things like cooking and animal taming. So you're supposed to be able to do those things eventually as well. One of the interesting things also is that the game's animals, the NPCs that you can hunt and then strip of their resources and use to do other things, actually they don't just appear in the same places over and over again like other MMOs. They spawn in specific locations based on population. So if you go around and kill all the deer in a specific location, if you go back there the next day, you cannot be guaranteed that there will be deer there. And you need multiple deer in order to spawn more. The same thing goes with all the other animals. Currently there are only 4 animals that you can hunt, but they are planning to have 40 in total. And then there's also an aging cycle for animals. So when you come across a bear, you could come across one that's extremely large, which would be like an older male, or you could come across an older male and then 2 cubs. And if you didn't kill the cubs and let them live, they could eventually grow up. And then the larger they are, the more resources you get from them whenever you kill them and harvest them. So it's a very, very detailed game. from start to finish. We can take a look here. Right now I'm extremely thirsty. My guy's pretty much just dying of thirst. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the resources tab, and it shows that I'm standing on grass and water. So if I right click on this, it says I'm encroaching on territory. But my guy actually goes down and takes a drink. And then my bar goes up a little bit.